time for part 2 of our data analysis and comparison and conclusion video. So we are going to continue looking at the NBA data that we looked at yesterday. And yesterday we left off, we had analyzed Steph Curry's data. That's this table here, this spreadsheet here. We scroll all the way down. We can see all the great work we did yesterday. We found all kinds of measures of center, like the median, mean, and mode. We found some measures of variability, like the range, interquartile range, and the mean absolute deviation. And we talked about what those mean. Well, today we're going to take this information and use it to help us compare Steph Curry to some other NBA stars. So we're going to move across the bottom to some of our other tabs. The first thing we're going to go to is this tab. It's SC Steph Curry Day 2. This is the second day. Okay, what do we see here? We see 3 graphs. Those graphs have names of other NBA stars. We see some data over here to the left. So this data here is some of the data from the first tab on Steph Curry. It is the games just numbered 1 through 64. And then it is literally the points that he scored in each of those games taken from that previous tab. And then we see just kind of a very boring column. It's just his mean next to every single game score. We're going to use this to create a graph where the graph is comparing each game to his mean for Steph Curry. Okay, so you'll actually notice that this column here for the mean is actually pulling the information directly from our previous tab. Now, I wanted to show one thing that I accidentally did for you already in this sheet and showing how I counted. Did I have to type all these numbers in here? So if I go back here, Excel's pretty cool. The way we can get it to count and follow patterns is really pretty cool. If I type 1 in the first, enter 2 in the second, Google Sheets isn't good enough to know this pattern. If I highlight both of them, and with both of them highlighted, I start dragging, it knows how to count for us. That's amazing. You could do other things, like if you went 15 and then 20, and you wanted to keep counting, look, it counts by 5s for us. It'll follow the pattern of the cells that you highlighted. I want to count by 1, so I'm going to go back to counting. I'm just going to grab 13 and 14 because that's counting by 1s. And I can drag down and, okay, there it is again. We can see that we are counting by 1s, and we can go all the way to 64. Just wanted to show that extra good piece of Excel knowledge for you there, Google Sheets knowledge. All right, so we want to make a graph that compares Steph Curry to some of these other NBA stars here. So we're going to select all of this data here. So we're going to drag and highlight all 3 columns here. Come back up. And we're going to go to our Insert Chart button. Boom. It did so much of the work for us. Google Sheets is pretty awesome. I'm just going to line this up there, make it nice and line up with the other ones. But let's clean this up a little bit more. So we've already talked a little bit about how we can customize and set up our chart already. It picked a line chart. I have done this a few times and it didn't pick a line chart. So if it didn't pick a line chart for you, go back and pick a line chart this time. Okay, what else? Let's go into the customize options. Let's go to chart axis and styles. So notice here, it's talking the vertical axis. All right, well, we do want to get to the vertical axis, but I'm going to go to the chart title first. Other than just points and mean, which is what this is graphing, sure. But we want to know that this is different from the other NBA stars, so I'm going to call this Steph Curry points by game. Great. I'm also going to center that. Now, what do all these numbers mean that are on our graph? Up on the left side here, going up and down, I see 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. Well, these are the points that Steph Curry scored in that game. And we can kind of recognize that by if we see like this point right here, this very tall point, that's when he scored 64 points towards the end of the season. So let's change it from chart title to let's go to vertical axis. And on the vertical axis, let's call that points. Takes a second, bing, there it is. We've got points over there. Well, what's the horizontal axis? It was close. It called it game. I'm going to just change that a little bit to call it game number. Wonderful. I'm going to do a few more things to kind of make this a little cleaner looking. I'm going to go into the vertical axis down here. Vertical axis up and down, the axis, the left edge there. I like to show this line here. Makes it a little cleaner on the edge there. Okay, so we're making a real nice graph here. I do notice that some of the other graphs are missing some titles. So this is pretty cool. If we go back to chart title and titles, chart and axis titles, right now it's on horizontal axis, and I'm clicked on Steph Curry. If I click over to the LeBron James one, I'm still at that point in the chart setup. So it's still game number. So I can put that on LeBron James's graph. And then I can click on Giannis, and we'll again put game number. It'll put that down below, and we can click on Kevin Durant. We can type in game number. But wait, we need the vertical axis there, so we can change it to vertical axis, and we can put points, go over to each of our graphs, and add that. All right, I also noticed that the Kevin Durant one's missing that line there that I liked. Oops, vertical axis, I want to put that line back in there. Okay, great. Well, let's look at these graphs, and as they stand, you might think, well, look, Giannis is look how many games he had where he's really high on the graph. And you might think, wow, that's way better than Steph Curry. Until we look a little closer. If we look at this point for Steph Curry, where it's his highest point total, it's over 60. And this highest point, which looks higher in the graph, is actually below 50. Oh, let's look at these vertical axes. In Steph Curry's, the axis goes up to 80, but in the other three NBA stars, it only goes up to 50. And that isn't as great for comparison. So let's go ahead and try to make this a little bit better of a comparison. Since we don't want to let Steph Curry go off the graph, we don't want to make them all 50. Let's make them all a graph scale that goes up to 80. So let's go to LeBron. We've clicked on LeBron. And if we go down here to vertical axis, here it says min and max value. We don't really need to worry about the min value, but if we put in 80 for the max value, boom. Now the graph is the same as Steph Curry. And we can now see a little bit better that LeBron, he's averaging less, and even kind of his fluctuation is really staying pretty much below Steph Curry. In terms of points, we're not going to say that categorically that's the only thing that matters in the game, but maybe if this was like a fantasy basketball league and you just had to compare points, well, Steph Curry is doing better for you than LeBron James was. All right, let's do that for the other two as well. And look, when we click on them, we're already on that field in the customizing of our chart, so I can make that 80. Oh, that shifted those totals way down. And for Kevin Durant, we can do the same thing down to 80. Again, look at those shifting down. Now we can see a lot more that Steph Curry is a lot higher. One thing you'll notice also for the other graphs, though, they have more lines across. In between 40 and 60, there's another line here. Let's click on Steph Curry's graph. We're on the vertical axis, but let's go down one more to grid lines and ticks. So the major spacing type, those are going by steps. The minor ones are by counting. Well, basically, the major ones are the big lines across, but we can put lines in between the ones that are numbered. So how many lines are in between the other ones? There's just one line in between. So that's what I'm going to change this to, just to one line in between. The nice thing about that is I kind of know this line in between 40 and 60 is 50. And so I can see points like this data point right here for Steph Curry, somewhere in game 4 or something like 3 or 4, maybe game 3 even. He was around 50 points. Here he's around 50 points, multiple times over 50 points. And really, none of the other players crosses 50. Maybe Giannis crosses 50 points one time here, but very rarely are they crossing that 50-point mark. So we can see that Steph Curry, in terms of points, really was doing a better job this past season, the 2020-2021 season. So great. Now we've made some graphs that are really good for comparison. Well, these other graphs were made for us, so where did that data come from? So similar to Steph Curry, we have data here in the tabs below for LeBron James. And if we look at the bottom here, we see all of his measures of center and measures of variability. And then here's kind of where his data set came from. But then on this tab for Giannis, we see, again, same data there. And then for the Kevin Durant data set, again, we see his data set there at the bottom. So let's look at some of the specific numbers that came out of that to learn a little bit more. So we're on Kevin Durant. We've got 28 is the mean, 26.9 is the 28 is the medium, 26.9 is the mean. So 28, 27, around there. Okay, let's compare that So Giannis, pretty similar. Another median of 28. LeBron James, median 25, definitely less. And 24.5 for the mean. Steph Curry, way up at 32. That's another way that we can kind of see about where they were typically scoring in their games. What about the variability? For Steph Curry, 7.8. LeBron James, 9.43 down here. That means he was less consistent. He was at a lower number, but also less consistent because that's a bigger number. That's how far away he is from his average on any given day. Now, Giannis was a little bit more consistent. Now, he didn't score as many points, so you still might not say he's a better basketball player or better at scoring points, but he's a little bit more consistent. You knew what to expect from him a little bit more. Kevin Durant, pretty similar, 7.37. Let's go back to Steph Curry. That was 7.8. A little bit more consistent, actually, but still, again, a little bit lower. So we can use this information. We need to use really both measures of center and measures of variability to start really having a conversation about how these players performed in their games. Thanks so much for joining us and making these data calculations and making some graphs to help us compare our NBA stars. Thanks. Bye.